All right, guys. So got something a little different, but still in ATS or back in ATS more or less. We'll be talking a little bit about ferries. So a friend of mine, Quick Kiwi, was messing around over in Euro Truck, and he went and did a ferry. He made a comment talking about how it'd be nice to have those little cut scenes in them. Where you saw maybe leaving the port and then coming back in the port or harbor. Now in Louisiana, they did do that with some of the ferries. So there's one in particular that I knew of for sure. So I quick traveled down to here, got this load from BP. So I'm gonna show you kind of where we're at on the map right now. So we're down in southern Louisiana, way down here. And there's a ferry right here, and you actually watch the ferry going across this little, it was more like a river in a way, and then you just carry about your business. And that started with Louisiana. Now I think that in Nordic Horizons DLC for Euro Truck, there's some short ferries over on the Norway side that if I'm remembering correctly, that kind of do the same thing. But I'm not for 100% sure. I'd have to go back over and check. But I figured I'd just show this off. And also, too, I was wanting to talk on real quick before we get started here. When you're looking at your loads, so I'm going to use cargo market because I am using a trailer. Anytime you're in freight market or cargo market, and I know some people don't use trailers, so well, let's just use freight market, for example. When you first pull up this list, it's going to show, because I have mine sorted by paying by the best price per distance. So the first load's popping up is all the way up in Montana, which means I'd have to drive all the way to Montana to get that load. But if you go back to where you're at and click the dot for the city you're at, and it will give you a list of loads coming from the city you're currently in. It may be a little bit outside the city, but it's depots that it's tied to that city. And what makes it kind of nice is that you can look at loads in other cities going around. So for example, we're going up to Shreveport, so I can go ahead and look at Shreveport. Now I got my flatbed, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my cargo market back. So I can look at flatbed loads in Shreveport and kind of get an idea of, what's going on up there. So if you're already looking at a load down here, but you want to make sure you get a load out of there, and if you go back to some of my hotshot videos, you'll see kind of what I'm talking about, because I was running into problems with getting loads with the horse trailer and even the gooseneck, the car trailer. I'm sorry, not the gooseneck. Gooseneck does pretty good. Um, Now, you only have to worry about this for any of the regular cargo market, whether it's freight market or cargo market. Now, if you're doing external or external market, it's a little different. Most of the time, it just pins you in the city you're in, but it may pull up the ones nearby, like Huma or New Orleans, for example, especially if you got cities really close. So, to always mitigate that, the best thing to do is to click on the city you're in, so that way you get loads out of that city, and then you can just kind of go through this list. Now, World Trucks loads have way more loads coming out of each city than the regular cargo market does, but those loads are also have a speed governor on them. So you're governed at a max of 65 mile per hour in ATS and 90 kilometers an hour in Euro Truck. But the benefit that I like, and I pick these mostly for when I'm doing my videos for you guys, is because you look at this has 8 hours remaining on this one, for example. Or if we even go back and look at mine's got 7 hours. Now, this in blue, because it's a World of Truck job, that is 7 real life hours. And that's good and bad in a couple aspects. Now, if you're one of these ones that likes to take long runs and give yourself a couple of real life days to complete it, this is not for you. Because that job will actually expire, and I think the job just disappears off your truck, so that's not cool. But it gives me 7 real hours to get the load done, and it gives me time to set my video up. And I just make sure there's plenty of time. This one, I wasn't paying attention to time, but it's still fine. It's only 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 actually. Um, Whereas when you're looking at your regular market, we'll use freight market for example here, and you look at these loads here. Now the offer expires in 2 hours 26 minutes. Once you pick up that load, it has how do you call it? Automated, gives you basically a time. I can't pronounce that word for my life right now, but it gives you a certain amount of time to get this load done, and it's going to give you enough time to get it done, including doing rest stops if you have that feature enabled. And so there's just that. So just kind of keep some of that stuff in mind when you're looking at your loads. I just point this out because I've seen some people run into issues where deadheading a very long time because they're not realizing that the load's not in the city they're in. It's all in another city. Now, I mean, it's a little different if it was a couple of towns away, maybe. It was something you really wanted, but that's kind of what that is. But anyhow, let's go ahead and get back into this and let's get to trucking. I'll show this ferry because that's the whole reason we're here. Get back in our truck. And I believe I ended up turning traffic off the other day. I was messing with something. I could be wrong, so I got to keep my eyes open for traffic. Out here where we're at right now, it's kind of like a little island. There's really no traffic here that I've ever seen. Oh, and something else I wanted to mention on this ferry. I know I'm going sidetracked in every direction in the world, but seeing this cutscene for this ferry only works if you are in single player mode. It does not work if you are in convoy mode or multiplayer. Now, whether or not how that works over in Truckers MP, I'm assuming it's going to be the same as convoy. It's just going to be the quick instant blurb you're there. So this is a lot smaller ferry. Obviously, it's a smaller ferry way, so it's not going to be a huge ferry. So it's really only got enough room for a couple trucks here. For me, I don't have to shut the engine off. But I sometimes do. What I do recommend is, even if you're gonna leave your truck on and it's at night, turn your headlights off. Because for some reason, I'm just gonna go ahead and start this and you'll go ahead and just kind of see while I'm talking here. Give it a second to, oh, I guess I have to click the button too. But we'll start to take off here. But what'll happen is your headlights, where they reflect on the ground, will stay behind. It's just kind of weird. So just a quick little caveat there. But this one here, you get to watch the ferry going across this little riverish canal, we'll call it. It'll kind of go off screen there for a minute and we'll come back. You just kind of watch the cutscene. And I get why they remove it in convoy, because in convoy you got, you know, up to 8 people running together, and this would take forever, especially if you do like me and Papa do, where, you know, we wait for the other person, the first person to get off the trigger off the ferry, for example, and then the next person goes. So having to wait on a cutscene. And this here isn't very long. This is maybe 30 seconds to a minute, so this isn't too horrible. And I don't know, there's another ferry here in Louisiana down south of Lake Charles, and I think it does the same thing, but I can't really remember where the rest of them are at, and whether or not they'll start implementing them on the shorter ferry rides. I think it's kind of cool, and I just wanted to touch on this because Kiwi was mentioning that in his video. So now that we're here, let's go ahead and get on with our load here. Only 216 miles, so we should be able to do this pretty quick. Say quick, you know, I'm not trying to rush it. I try to keep the videos at a decent amount of time, and I try to keep around that 30-minute mark, so I didn't typically pick the shorter runs just to make sure I can stay in that. I mean, currently from where we sit, my real life time, it says 13 minutes is how long it's going to take me to get this there. But then once you start factoring in, you know, my blabbering in the beginning and the ending and parking and all that good stuff, you know, it takes up the time pretty quick. So I hope everybody's been doing pretty good. I haven't been recording any videos. I've still got the little backlog to edit. Kind of getting that whittled down, so I'm gonna probably record a few more tonight. We are speeding, oh my gosh. I thought it was 45. It is 40. I'm noticing in ATS, sometimes the speed limits inside the cities won't be correct according to what's on that GPS to what it actually, the signs will say. But if I remember right, we can only do about 45 across this bridge, and this is another cool spot. We get up around this curve a little bit here, and I'll go into outside view, and we can kind of gander around a minute. But there's a toll at the end of this. We'll go across a good little ways, and then there's a toll. But let me see here. I think it's this button. What's this here? Yeah, this way we can look around, and hopefully I won't run off the bridge. But yeah, this is a pretty big waterway, pretty big bridge, and it's not even the biggest in the United States, or even Louisiana for that matter. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look at here. I'm not gonna, as you can see, I'm all over the place, so I'm not gonna be gandering up here for too long. I mean, water for as far as I can see over that direction. So, sorry if I'm moving a little bit fast. I just want to be able to get back in the truck before I get up here. So yeah, hadn't been a whole lot going on past few days. I've been working on some text documents that I mess with. It's notes for ATS currently. I'm going to be doing ETS as well later on. I ran into some issues to where stuff's not saving correctly, so I got to figure out if I'm gonna continue it there or what. And I'm not going to go into depth on that one. Other than that, I've been playing a few games. I was talking to a friend of mine the other night. Oh, wait a minute. Before we get into other games and such, they at CES announced that the next DLC that they're working on is going to be Indiana for the ATS side. So the state of Indiana is going to be coming out probably in the next year. Currently, they are still working on South Dakota, and they're also working on British Columbia, which goes into Canada. And I think once they do British Columbia, they're probably going to go ahead and do Alaska for that, is what I'm going to guess money on. Yeah, there was that announcement today. There's the beta for 1.60 for both ATS and ETS. It adds some different improvements, mostly shaders and things like that. So I haven't really been paying attention to a lot of that stuff. I haven't seen no cars, so I think cars must be turned off. Turn them on, but that means I'd have to stop, and we'll just do this trip with no cars this time. Probably gonna try to give cars a try again over in ETS as well. Probably the next recording. I still got, I think, one more ETS video to edit, maybe two to edit and upload. So I'm trying to kind of space them out and spread them out a little bit. And like I've said before, I'm also wanting to add some other games into that mix. And going into other games, I was talking to a friend of mine, a friend that I know, through another group, and we both play Satisfactory. Me and that whole group pretty much do. And Satisfactory is a factory building game. It's all automation, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I may do a video on it here soon. So they just went to version 1.2 and added some quality of life features, and they actually brought back rainy weather, storms, thunder, and things like that. But they also added some other quality of life features and stuff. So we were talking about that, and I got on there and started messing with it last night, and ended up on there for about 2 or 3 hours messing with it. And yeah, it's kind of hard for me to pick other games to add to the mix, because I know that Satisfactory, Cache Cleaner, things like that are not really this. They don't have a lot of similarities to the whole trucking thing. So I haven't fully decided if I'm going to start implementing some of those or not. I've got my OBS set up to record Cache Cleaner. I've never done recordings yet, but those games there. So in case you don't know, I'm starting to basically have learned that I'm kind of pre-diabetic right now. I'm having problems with high blood sugar, and I'm also having problems with my feet. The feet problems seem to get worse as the day progresses. So when I first get up, my feet feel pretty good. So this is the perfect time for me to do my trucking. And this is kind of why this is usually what I do. I get on, when I do get on to play, usually one of the first games I play is trucking if my feet feel up to it. Because as the day progresses, they kind of swell a little bit. I get the pins and needles, the pain and throbbing. When I went to sleep this morning, because I've been up all night type schedule right now, but when I went to sleep this morning, I ended up laying in bed for about an hour and a half, and I finally got up and got back on the computer for a little while because my feet were bothering me so bad that I couldn't sleep. So I ended up getting back up for a little bit, and then I laid back down about an hour and a half later to try to go to sleep. And I mean, I was yawning like crazy and stupid tired, but it just makes it hard to sleep. So anyhow, after I've done my little bit of trucking spill or using, wheel and pedals, and it's mostly been trucking here lately, and my feet start bothering me, then I switch to other games. And those other games would be Satisfactory, or sometimes Cache Cleaner Simulator. I also play Ship Graveyard Simulator 2, which is a game about buying old ships and you get to tear them apart for scrap metals. So I play stuff like that. I've got quite a big variety of games that I play, you know, that don't involve, you know, the steering wheel and pedal setup. Now, as far as for trucking, I pretty much have my setup already set the way I want, and I don't really want to change my settings very much if possible. But I did some Google research and I did find out that I can take my controls file out of ATS, and I can also do this in ETS. I can make a copy of it and put it on my hard drive somewhere. Now, I know most of you guys that do watch my stuff have played Farming Simulator, and y'all know the advantages of keeping your mods separated with either a mod switcher or by just manually copy and pasting your mods back and forth from your folders. So this is going to be similar to doing it that way. And what I'm thinking is I can have a controls configuration set up for wheel and pedals, and I'll just title the folder wheels configuration or something simple like that. And then what I was thinking is go back in there. I can turn off the steering wheel and turn my Xbox controller back on. And then with the Xbox controller, I could go back in and reconfigure everything again to work with the controller. And I wouldn't do much videos with the controller, but it would give me a way to be able to get on and do some of the other stuff that I showcased for Chicago about just driving around in Chicago. And that Chicago video has not been released yet. But I do take the hotshot pickup, or maybe I did release that one. Well, y'all seen the hotshot truck with the hidden video, that's right. But the hidden roads, I'm sorry, hidden roads. But a lot of times I take my hotshot pickup out, which is a Dodge pickup, and I go to the different cities that I've been to, and I open up the depots, get the photo trophies, the viewpoints, you know, find the dealerships, and just things like that, and just kind of open up the town a little bit. It's just something I like to do on the side. So I was thinking I could set up my controller to be able to do that on the side, just to be able to goof off a little bit. So, but we are coming into Lafayette, Louisiana right now. Speed limit is 55. It's going to drop again, I think, to 50, so we're probably going to have to shift again. I am using my shifter right now.
Continue straight.
It's 40 right here. Let it slow down. So one thing that's nice about driving in automatic mode is I use cruise control a lot, and you know, automatic, you know, you don't have to worry about shifting, and I could literally just tap the cruise control, my adjustments up or down to fit the speed limit of the area I'm in. You know, whereas with the shifter, you know, I've got to cut my cruise off and I got to downshift or upshift depending upon what's going on, you know, and it's more realistic that way. But you know, automatic mode makes it nice for things like that when you don't want to have to constantly kick the cruise control in and out just so you can slow down for a city or something like that. Now, I will say in ETS, I'm more prone to drive the ETS trucks with automatic mode. And the reason why is because the Euro transmissions have so many different styles of shift patterns. And I know people think the same thing with American truck, but in theory, the American truck, the transmissions are relatively the same. As far as what's built into the game. A 10-speed Eaton Fuller, a 13-speed Eaton Fuller, and an 18-speed Eaton Fuller are basically the same transmissions, in theory. They're not 100%, and I prefer an 18 over any of them. But a 10-speed or 9-speed, depending upon how you look at it, because low gear is one of your gears that adds up to the 10, so you have, you know, that to add into the mix. So in a 9-speed transmission with a low gear, you well, no, it's just typically a 9-speed. I mean, I'd have to probably do a whole separate video on this, but a 9-speed, a 13-speed, a 18-speed. So The difference between the 9 and the 13 is the 13 you're able to split your high and your top range gears. So you would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you would go to your upper range, and those gears, those next 4 gears are splittable. They have high low ranges on them. So the difference between a 13 to an 18 is you have that high low range on both your upper and your lower ranges. So I don't go through all the ranges with this load particularly, because there's not a lot of weight. So 13 and 18, there's two beauties to it. Beauty number one is for heavy haul or heavyweight loads, people that haul full loads or oversized overweight loads. It gives you more gears to have more of a crawler gear. And then the other beauty of it with the 13 and the 18 is being able to split some of your top gears, because, you know, in an 18 speed, and like, for example, my Peterbilt, I never went to 18th gear until I hit 65 mile an hour. So if I was doing 60 or 55, I was in 17. So it just gave me that ability to split that. Whereas if you had just the regular 9 speed, you're either winding the gear up in 9th gear or 8th, or you're lugging the motor in 9th. So it gives you that ability to split them gears to where it rides smoother, and you know, it just overall feels better. So that's the complexities of those two, or those three in a way. You don't hear much about the 9 speeds as much anymore. Usually they're 10 speeds. Automatic transmissions are becoming more common, but the early automatic semi trucks were not exactly fully automatic like most people think. The best terminology I can explain it is, if you've ever ridden with somebody that drove a manual transmission vehicle and you're sitting in the passenger seat or even in the back seat, you feel all those shifts. Every time they have to clutch it and grab the next gear, you feel the vehicle you kind of lean forward, and then you kind of lean back when they get back in the gear. With a automatic semi truck, the early ones, that's exactly how they felt. And they were still a manual transmission with a electrono shift mechanism built on top of the transmission instead of the shifter box, or instead of a gear shifter. And so it was, this electric box did the shifting for you, is all it did. And over the years of those initial designs, those would eventually break and they would quit working. Well, it was expensive to replace that part, and it was cheap to just buy a shifter and put a shifter in your truck and go back to driving a stick. Because a lot of those early, especially the very early ones, still had a clutch. You had to use a clutch to take off, but then it did all the shifting for you after that. So it was weird. Now the newer ones, I'm not 100% sure if they're still that way or if they've actually improved them. I've always stayed away from automatic transmissions in big trucks because I've had so many issues with them in the past. So I've always just kind of stayed away from them. Yeah, those are the main things with transmissions there. I probably could have made a whole video on transmissions, and it partially wouldn't have been in here. But anyways, for ATS, talking about automatic transmissions before we get delivered here. Depending upon this type of transmission, I've noticed in ATS, depending upon brand, the Scania versus the Volvo one versus the traditional one, their shift patterns are very different to US, number one, and they all differ a little bit from each other. Also too, their reverse is, how do I explain this? So they have a 6-speed with a reverse, and for me to emulate reverse on my shifter, I have to push down on the shifter, push it down into the shift box, and then I can go to my reverse, or number 6 position for reverse. And I don't like doing that because I use a plastic table for my desk setup. I've been using it for years. We gotta go here. Right there. We're gonna cut across this here. So pushing down on that, it loosens the clamps over time. So I try not to do that. So it's a configuration that I've got to figure out in ETS. I've got a couple of ideas that I may try something different on. But for right now, we're gonna park this bad boy. Get this load off of us. And I may look into do another load out of here. So my load location's gonna, all my location stuff has changed because I'm moving trucks around and moving me around a few times. But I started out the video with talking about the ferries and stuff, so I hope y'all understand that and enjoyed that part of it. And of course, the usual chitter chatter for me. Let's see how we did here. I forgot to fill my drink up, so I'm down to ice. All right, $9,900. That ain't too horrible. So yeah, so that pretty much is that, guys. Hope you enjoyed the ride. I always have fun playing this as long as my feet cooperate with me. But I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll look for another load and maybe go and record another one that'll get released later on. So y'all have a good one, and I'll see ya.